Feeling stressed? Even if you're not, you probably do more often than you'd like. This week, I'm sharing a great exercise to deal with our inner chaos and help us feel more equipped for the chaos outside of us. Life can be messy, and letting our art be messy can help us deal with that. This week, we are letting go of control to simply create. We're going to give ourselves some control and power over any emotional or mental chaos we may be experiencing by creating chaotic art. We're going to have some fun making a bit of a mess. It's actually the first step in a two-part process. We'll start this week by acknowledging our chaos in a way that gives us power. We can't deny emotions and effectively deal with them. We'll let them inform what we are doing. And it sounds like if we're letting go of that control over our emotion, we're losing control. But in putting it down on the page, we're also taking control. So this week, by releasing some of our chaos, we can take control of it. And next week, we'll even make it beautiful. Welcome to Better with Art. I'm Melinda, and I'm here to encourage you to reclaim your creativity and practice creative self-care with weekly small art prompts that can be done in an art journal or on paper if you don't have one. Let's get started with some chaotic and intuitive art making because we are better with art. This week I'm starting out with some random writing and drawing implements. Some scrap paper. This can be anything. You can use junk mail. You could also, as we are processing chaos, you could write out something to shred up and adhere to your paper. What it looks like really doesn't matter at all, as it's just going to be more texture in the background as opposed to part of the artwork itself. I have some random colors of inexpensive acrylic craft paint. You can use whatever paint you would like. I also have my glue stick for my paper. I don't use glue sticks for my outside art journal art, but I also, in my art journal, want to use materials that are inexpensive and accessible. I have a bamboo skewer and one of my plastic credit card type cards, which I may or may not use. You can use anything you would like to apply paint, either something you are familiar and comfortable with, or try something new. We're going to get started by just making marks on our pages. Use this as an opportunity to tap into how you're feeling, particularly if there is something that is bothering you and you want to process it with your art or get it out of your system. What you do in this stage doesn't matter. Honestly, I'm not thrilled with the lack of artistry, if you will, of what I'm doing right now, but it's getting me into an art making space in my mind. Because to be honest, I'm not really there right now. This stage of this week's project is just about starting, not worrying about anything else. This is one of my Sharpies. I love this color. The purple is one of my Amazon Basics markers. I will put links in the description to all of the products I used this week. This, well, I won't this. This is a Dollar General marker. I will have Amazon links. I really like the thicker lines this is giving. It's not one I like to use for graphic style art because it's too big. But I'm liking this bold. I'm liking the bold lines this is making. Another thing you could do is some asemic writing, like I got into a bit last week. If all goes as planned, I will have a Wednesday studio video this week, which will be 5 steps to help you get comfortable with making your own
Asemic writing if you are not comfortable with it, if you don't like the way you do it, if you've tried and it's turned out not in ways you would like, or if you don't know what it is and are curious. It's one of the favorite, most popular topics of videos I've made in the past, even though I just briefly touched on it. But I know that people are curious about it, so I will share some more. And next week, I will share a video about how you can use it in your mixed media art. I am starting a new 5 series. Each week there will be 5 tips, 5 steps, 5 favorites. And I probably could have stopped with the mark making before now, but that's okay. Very little, if any, of this will show even after the next step. It's more about getting yourself into your mental art making space and also starting to let go of any of the chaos you have in your mind and your emotions, the stress you're carrying from chaos you may be dealing with in your life. As I've said, this week's art is chaotic to help us deal with our chaos. So the next thing we're going to do is shred up our scrap paper or whatever papers we're using. However amuses you. This was an experimental gel print on a large index card. The act of tearing things up can also be cathartic, therapeutic. And then we will use our glue stick and adhere it to our pages for texture. Again, it's just for texture, so what it looks like doesn't really matter. Also crumple it up for some more texture, whether or not text is showing or face down. Again, it does not matter. Life can be overwhelming and emotions can get bottled up. And when we do that, we need to find a way to release it. Not deny it, acknowledge it, and find ways to let it go and process it. Chaotic art is ideal for that. We're layering on collage without overthinking. And letting go of overthinking can be like lifting a weight from ourselves. Allowing getting into the flow of no expectations. Quiet all the noise. It also lets us just tap into what lies beneath our conscious, rational thoughts we approve of thinking. I'm not wording that well, but I hope I'm getting my point across. So if you are looking for glue sticks, the Elmer's Disappearing Purples are my favorite. And they hold up pretty well most of the time. Sometimes, as with any glue stick, things can peel later in your journal. But the way we're doing this shouldn't be a problem with what we'll be adding later. But make sure you get all of your edges. Another thing I forgot to mention that I have out to use for this week's project are some of the botanic sketches from a recent video for inspiration for step 2 of today's phase of our project. You don't have to fill your whole page. You don't have to do a single layer. Just glue down paper in any way that feels good without taking too much time to think. Pick up a piece, glue it down, and move on. You don't have to take the time to consider composition or anything. It truly doesn't matter as long as you are letting yourself be embraced by the process. I need to get away a little bit from using my edges so much to be a better example of just letting go and creating chaos. Another reason that chaotic art creation is beneficial is, as I have already talked about several times this year, it helps us let go of perfection. We're not trying to accomplish any particular look, any particular aesthetic. It doesn't have to look objectively good. It just has to be. The value in this stage of our project is the act of creating it, not what we're creating. One benefit of our art journals is that they are a safe place to just let go of all those expectations of others, of ourselves, and just enjoy putting things together in a way that just feels good in the moment with no concern for appearance. It is what it is. Whatever that happens to be. And we don't have to define it. A project like this is also enjoyable on a larger substrate. Substrate is something on which we make our art. I mean, you could get really adventurous with your messy art. And we will get a little messier with the next step today. And if you have the opportunity to create bigger chaotic art, I encourage you to do so. I am double checking my edges, rubbing off some excess. We're going to let this dry a bit and use what I mentioned that I'd forgotten to mention, as well as some cardstock or other parts of your scrap paper if you don't have any cardstock. Cardstock is nice because it's a little heavier for what we'll be using it for next week. But again, use what you have. I have my sketches that I was working on before I filmed my video and did some sketching in my art journal, which, so I could refer to it today, I did take a photo of on my phone. So I could also use that if I wanted to, because I can't turn the pages back to it if I want this to dry effectively. But what we need these for, and if you haven't done any, you can go back and enjoy that video, or you can just use reference images of your own or online. We are not going for detailed representations, not even as detailed as our sketches were. We're using these for inspiration for shape. So something like this may be useful. Like that leaf there would be helpful. We want to create, I'm going to rip this in half so it's better representative of my pages. We want to create some organic shapes. We're going to create sort of a mask, sort of a stencil. And I really like that leaf shape. It's really large, so I think, where was it? Something like this would be good, but we'll need a larger stem. So I think I'll just create something similar to this. I'm really fixated on drawing a leaf like that first, but I want a stem shape first. Whatever works. Just create some loose. No, I don't like that leaf at all, but that's okay. All right, I am getting too focused on trying to explain what I am doing, and I am starting that over. I know I always say, don't worry about perfection. I also need something that's useful, and I don't despise for next week's part of this project. I'm really not liking my I'm really not liking my plant making today. But I'm going to cut this out. So I've used more intuition to fix what I made. We need something to help guide us next week when, as I mentioned, we're going to take our interesting messy chaos and bring some more beauty to it. And revisit the concept of negative space. I'm not loving this, but that's okay. We do need to move on to the next part of today's art so I don't make a video that is impossibly too long. I will make another piece of another botanical shape for this side before next week. But now, it should be dry enough. Another thing that would be helpful at this stage is taking a full sheet of scrap paper or parchment paper, but I happen to have a scrap piece here on my desk that I was using for another project, and put something down between the page you're working on and the rest of your art journal. And the first thing I'm going to do in this paint portion is use the bamboo skewer, because I saw someone doing something, and this isn't the type of paint they were using, but that's okay. One benefit also of using the craft acrylic as opposed to the acrylics I use in my outside art journal art is that it is runnier, more watery, and should work for this better than my typical acrylics. That is just a really big glob, which is not ideal for what I'm getting ready to do, but that's okay. We work with what we have. And I got blue a little close to orange, but that's okay. That whole complementary colors. I am questioning the way I have laid this out. I was thinking about pulling it this way, but I think I'll pull it this way. Now, aside from using a different type of paint than the person used, and again, I just watched it quickly, so kind of making it up as I go. We're also dealing with a textured surface, so we're not going to get that even laying down of paint as I saw, but that's okay, and this is fun. You may have seen videos in the past where I did use a card, but this is, you have even less control of what the paint is doing. You'll get even more unexpected results, and for this, I think that's really a great option. It works really well for this type of chaotic art making. But again, give this a try. It's a lot of fun, actually. And I think it'll be a lot of fun to try again sometime on a non-textured surface to get more of the effect you can get with it. That's less chaotic. But yeah, this is fun. You may not like it on the bumpy surface if you want to try it. We can also use our skewer to make marks in our paint. And we're not going for any particular look. We are just painting. If you want to try a brush, that's fine. Do something, let's see. I've grabbed a brush to show you how it could look different. Well, it'll look different depending on how much your paint you have on your paper too. The most important aspect of this is to be uninhibited. And to be honest, the way I have to move the brush through the paint is not being as uninhibited. But at the same time, I kind of like having more color lay down. I'm kind of rambling. Lay down some paint, however you choose to do so. That lets you just enjoy making a mess. Ooh, I like that through there. We're not going for any particular look, except covering 2 pages with marks, texture, and color. However that ends up looking. Our art journals are a safe place for us to express ourselves and experiment without fear of what others will think. The only person's judgment you need to worry about is your own. And as I always say, be gentle with yourself. Better than that, be encouraging. This doesn't need to look like anything. Another way you can engage your senses in this art making today, you can turn on some music. I love to make art to music. Can't really do that in my videos with copyright and such. Another suggestion for loosening things up is working with your non-dominant hand, which can take a little more concentration which could possibly help you get into flow more easily. Your goal is to immerse yourself into the process of creating messy, chaotic art. I like how as the paint starts to dry, you can create a deeper texture. Focus on the process. What it looks like is not the important part. The important part is the creating and the feelings it can evoke in you and the feelings you can express with it. Taking a look at our hard feelings, our uncomfortable feelings, our negative feelings can be difficult. And this can be a safe way to release them. To acknowledge their power, but also limit their power to dictate to us outside of our page. I know I keep saying that the final look doesn't matter, but I'm feeling this part is too brown. Letting ourselves make chaotic art can also look a bit like the unpredictability of life. So again, being able to put it down on a page helps us feel some control. Helps us feel like we can regain some control. I did not choose favorite colors. I chose some that were first in the container. You can choose colors that represent how you're feeling. You could also choose some of your favorite colors. You could choose colors you don't like. This is definitely not a look of something I would typically create. These are not colors I would typically work with. I mean, I work with blues and yellows and oranges, but these particular blues and yellows and oranges, especially with this shade of brown, I don't work a lot with brown. And I'm getting off topic. Life can be unpredictable. Life can be hard. Emotions can be hard. And sometimes just letting them go, giving them voice through what we're making helps them feel more manageable. Not to mention the pleasure we can find in just making a bit of a mess. And of course, making itself. It's also useful if you enjoy creating art, but your creativity seems to be suffering. Sometimes when, as I've talked about recently with letting go of perfection, sometimes when we're not trying, we find that thing that sparks what we want to do elsewhere in our art. However it ends up looking, however you choose to approach it, whatever tools you choose to use. Let go and embrace the chaos. Set aside some time this week to create your own intuitive, messy, shall I say, masterpiece. If you would like to share the process and be encouraged in a small, slowly growing private Facebook group where I host my Better With Art online community, there will be a link in the description, as well as a link to sign up to be notified of upcoming workshops in person and online. Coming soon will be my Seeking Solace translucent layer collage workshop. And there will also be some creative self-care workshops for us to process various things like trauma and grief, anxiety. Be sure to come back next week with your chaotic art, and we will explore bringing order and beauty to our chaos using botanical organic shapes and negative space. Thank you for the opportunity to remind you that taking time to make art is not a waste of time. Let's make art, because we are better with art.